Letters of recommendation, one of the most important topics we're going to talk about and a really important task ahead for you as we move through the second half of junior year. So let's take a look at some important information about these letters of recommendation, or sometimes called letters of rec or LORs. These are an important part of your application process. So requesting them, that is, and then they're an important part of your application review because colleges are really interested in learning more about you from the perspective of someone else, like your academic teachers, your counselor, and perhaps people outside of school that are also a big part of your life. So let's talk a little bit about the requesting process. We are going to ask every junior to request 2 teacher letters of recommendation before school ends. So in making this video in late January, we are putting this information out there as we did in our really important college planning program we ran on a weeknight earlier this month. We recommend that you ask 2 academic teachers for letters of recommendation before June. So that gives you many months to do it. And we wouldn't delay. I wouldn't delay asking them. As soon as you have an idea of who you'd like to ask, go ahead and ask them. The longer that those teachers know, the better. And if you have that teacher this year as a junior, specifically in semester 2, once they know that you've requested a letter, it gives them a chance to really watch and keep an eye and build up some really great material for that letter of recommendation. So if you have teachers in mind, don't delay on asking them. If you're curious what happens when you only have one teacher in mind, that's okay. We're going to get down to that last bullet in a minute, that you automatically get 1 letter from your counselor. So if you're only thinking about 1 teacher at this time, that's really not too big of a deal because you'll have a counselor letter as well, which will give you a total of 2 recommendations. But there are some colleges that would like to see 2 academic letters. And many times students can think of 2 teachers to ask. So you want to think about asking 2, but if you are only at 1, that's okay. Just make sure it's somebody that you've had in an academic setting. So who should you ask? Well, you really want to check college requirements. There are some schools who will specify who that letter has to come from as far as academic discipline. For example, some colleges may require that if you're applying into an engineering program, you ask a math and a science teacher. Not all schools, and in fact, not many at all, are that specific. And we've actually seen some of those requirements lift in the last year as students have really had to think about so many other components about the college process. But it's really wise for you to check the admission requirements on college websites of the schools you're interested in, just to see what they want. You can ask a teacher from any academic year, but we will often see students ask teachers from their junior year because you presently have those teachers. They know you best as a student now, but you can go back and ask a sophomore or freshman teacher, especially if it's a teacher that had a big impact on you or you had a big impact on the class. You've kept in touch with that teacher over the last few years. Again, you want to check your requirements at colleges because some do have specific requirements saying that that letter has to come from a junior year teacher. So you want to think about that. And we're always happy as counselors to talk with you about who you may be thinking about asking and provide a little bit of advice. So normally pre-COVID, we would always require a verbal request, but we realize with many of our students being remote and you not in school every day, that making a verbal request is not doable. So we are okay with you asking your teachers via email. And that's a really simple email to your teacher, letting them know I'm starting the college process. I've really enjoyed my time in your class. And I was hoping that you could write me a letter of recommendation for college. You can share some experiences you had in the class, maybe what led you to ask that teacher, but you want to do that in an email. And hopefully the teacher will respond with an agreement to write that letter for you. And certainly if it goes in the other direction, you can always reach out to your counselor or myself for a little bit of advice and support on that. But there's a lot of great teachers at Hunterdon Central that you've had as well. And there's a lot of options of people for you to ask, but you want to put the email out. The teachers will respond. And at that point in time, that is all you need to do as far as requesting goes. If your teacher comes back and says, I need you to put that request in Naviance, know that that does not happen until the fall of 2021. So when you get back senior year, those teachers that previously agreed to write for you, you will then move toward the actual process and Naviance of requesting. And we won't even teach you how to do that until September. So for now, it's just a kind of an informal request via email. If you can do it in person, that'd be great, but email's fine. Hope that the teacher responds with a yes, and that's it. Just tuck that information away and the teacher will do the same. Some teachers may come back to you and say, I've got a form for you to fill out. It's some information. I'd like you to answer some questions about your time in class with me, something basic like that. Please make sure you do that for your teacher because that will help your teacher in putting together that letter of recommendation. Okay, let's talk about the counselor's letter. So you automatically get that letter. Every senior will have one letter of recommendation, a very holistic, very comprehensive letter going out to every college for them. That's an automatic letter. You don't need to ask your counselor to write that because your counselor will automatically write it. And that process will explain more about how to get that process initiated in the fall. But for now, know that all counselors for the class of 2022 are going to be working on your letters of recommendation through spring, summer, and into fall. Let's talk about these feedback forms that are really important in this letter writing process. We call them the junior questionnaires. These were talked about in our program that we ran, a webinar we ran earlier this month in the evening. So there's a recording about that, but I'm going to explain them in a little bit more detail. We'll be sharing these forms in our college video resource library, so a link to them. And it's about 7 pages of Google Doc material. You'll make a copy of it so it's your own. And there's 2 pages of questions all about you, 2 pages of questions for your parents to answer all about you, 2 pages of questions about your activities, and it closes out with a recommendation waiver form. We call this the junior questionnaire packet. It's very common at high schools all across the country. You may hear an informal term of them called brag sheets. It's your chance to put as much information about you out to your counselor as possible. Sure, your counselor knows you. They've been working with you for several years, but this is your chance to really delve into things like your characteristics, your strengths and your weaknesses, your high moments, maybe your low moments. You'll answer questions about words that explain you, a quote that explains you. There is a lot of extensive information in these forms. So they're forms that you want to spend some time on along with your parents and submit those to your counselor via the Google Doc process. They're going to be due in mid-March, so you want to plan ahead and not worry about those the night before they're due. But these are really necessary for your counselor to write the most comprehensive and holistic letter possible. Now you'll turn these in March, but if significant things happen in the second, later part of your junior year, summer before senior year, you get a new job that you're putting a lot of hours into, you have a new major accomplishment, you had a big achievement within a club, always update your counselor because they're going to want to put that information in your letter of rec that's going to go out next fall. Okay, so junior questionnaires are in the video and resource library. You've got your counselor letter and those junior questionnaires are tied in with that. And you've got the request process underway for teacher letters. And these letters of recommendation are going to be really important in the college application process for you. Any questions about letters of rec? Who to ask, how to ask, more specifics related to your individual situation, just reach out to your counselor or myself, and we are more than happy to help you.